Throughout the ages, mystics have told us that we are all powerful, that the power and the energy and all of the beauty of the universe is right within us. And we have been studying that for this last 3 weeks. We are in our 4th week of our fall program, so that's exciting. And one of the things that I'm finding as I go through this is that it is taking me deeper and deeper, because our language has taken us far away from being in that space of pure being. It's taken us to a place where even though we know, and we know extremely well, that the Spirit of God is within us, we are still speaking as if God were out there someplace. And we know that isn't true. So we're changing our language. We're beginning to look at ourselves and say, hey, wait a minute, there's something really wonderful about us. That spirit, that divine energy is within us. We are doing wonderful things, particularly in the ways of spirituality. We're really beginning to look at spirituality from a different place, from a different way of being. And I think that this is what the transformation that we're looking for is all about. You know, we can't desire to know oneness and at the same time speak of otherness. We just can't do it. Even though we know that God isn't that person out there, we have prayed as if that were the case. And so when we notice our life isn't flowing, and we all have those periods in our life when things just don't seem to be flowing. It's all herky-jerky. You ever have that time, when this isn't happening right and that's going, a little different than we wanted it to, and we wonder, what is it that we need to do that is going to bring us back to center? And one of the things that I have found is one of those tools that we talked about in our tool belt last week is denials and affirmations. Denials and affirmations are a wonderful way of changing our minds and bringing us back to center. I know that when we talk about denials, some people really think that perhaps what we're saying is that we're denying that a situation is real. That is not the case. Psychologically, denial is not a good thing. It's when we say that something is, we say things like, I'm not here and this isn't happening to me. Well, we all know we're here. We know this is happening to us. And as we see that, as we begin to look at it, we start to see, as we grow spiritually, that there's a common denominator in every situation that we have created that seems to be like the last situation. We ask that question, why is this happening to me again? And that's when we start to look at who the common denominator is in this entire situation. Because we have a tendency to put it out there. Well, it's that person or it's that situation. And when we do that, we're not going to grow. We're going to stay right where we are. We are going to continue to create that same scenario over and over and over again until we finally get it. It's going to, I've seen people who are still doing that when they've had a long life and they're still putting it out there, when what we need to work on is right here within ourselves and take responsibility. Now, we're not responsible for every little thing that happens. What we are responsible for is the approach that we take to it. What is the consciousness that we go into this problem with? And that's the thing we're learning in this fall program. We are learning to not look at the problem so much as what is the attitude we want to have in this problem. What is it that we want in our life that is going to take us beyond that? And I think that what that is, for me at least, is spiritual. It's my spiritual life. It is the divine life within me. And I'm not going to find it any other place. And so that's why we're changing our language. That's why we're taking it up another notch. because we are taking it up another notch. You know, spiritual denial is not that denial of the practicing alcoholic who says it's not my fault. That's not it. It's not about that. This is a psychological definition of denial. And it's, you know, that's not what we're talking about. Spiritual denial is release. It is letting go. It is letting go of what is not working in your life. And if you're thinking you're just only human, then things are not going to work out as well in your life unless you actually come to a point where you know that the Spirit of God dwells within you, and you have the power to call upon that and to use it in your life. I think that the denial we are talking about is taking the situation and realizing that this circumstance has no power to ruin my life. And I've heard people say, well, you know, when my spouse left me, it ruined my life. It's over. And they dwell in that place, and they don't leave it because they hang on to it with everything they've got. You know, we're hanging on to the wrong thing. We are not to hang on to that stuff. We are to hang on to the Spirit that is within us. We have to stay there. We have to stay in that centered place, in that place where we know that everything works together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. There we are with those words again. His purpose. That purpose that is within us. Many people can't understand why we even need denials at all. They say, well, I think that's kind of negative. You know, why do I need denials? And I say, you do. Take my word for it. But if you don't take my word for it, I want to tell you a story that I have told before, and I tell it in every Unity Basics class I teach. And this story, whether you've heard it or not, it's a good story, and I decided to use it anyway. So this is a story of a colleague of mine who back in the 80s bought a condo. And she was redecorating the condo, and it needed it. And remember when we had carpet in the kitchen? I had carpet in the kitchen once. Luckily it was, you know, that kind of carpet that had so much pattern on it you couldn't see all the stains. It was great. But anyway, she decided that she wanted white carpet throughout her entire house, even in the kitchen. And, you know, everybody says, are you sure you want to do this? And she said, oh, yes, I want. She says, I don't cook. She said, I don't even hardly boil water. She said, I want it everywhere. And that way, the whole place is just going to be gorgeous. It's going to be beautiful. And so they said, okay, well, they did it. So they carpeted the kitchen along with the rest of the house in white. And about 2 months into that time of living there, she noticed that there were dark spots on the carpet, here and there, mostly around the stove and the sink. And she thought, well, what is this? This is not right. So she called up the dealer, and the dealer said, oh, you know, kind of blew her off, frankly, because he didn't believe, you know, he thought it was crazy in the first place, so he didn't believe that she wasn't really cooking in there. But she was very persistent, and she kept after him. And finally, he gave up, and he said, I'll send out the representative from the carpet company. Representative came out. She showed him the spots. He said, oh, you have to have done this. And she said, no, I did not do this. I simply do not cook. Take my word for it. I don't. I'm a minister. You know, believe me. Have you heard that before? So anyway, she said, he said, well, okay. And he went to a corner, and he pulled up a corner to see what was underneath. And what was underneath was that old stained carpet that they had taken a shortcut. The people who installed the carpet did not take that old dirty carpet up. They left it there. Well, what happened, of course, was when you walk on the carpet, you kind of squish down, don't you? You know, and as you were walking on the carpet, that dirt from the carpet underneath started seeping up into the beautiful white carpet. So she got her carpet replaced, by the way. You know what? In this work, you cannot take shortcuts. And you can't take shortcuts in your life either. It's important that you do those denials. And I find that I don't like doing them either, to tell you the truth. You know, I'd rather just go right straight to the good stuff. But I really need to clear out that old consciousness, because the subconscious is holding all of the stuff that you've put in it. And some of it's great, and some of it's not so great. And it's going to seep up and spoil your consciousness, your conscious consciousness, and you're going to find that life can really get difficult when that happens, because you become confused. There's a lot of confusion that goes on with that. So I find that denials are very, very helpful. They're very helpful, and that we should be using them all of the time. Because when we have denials, then we can follow them with an affirmation. We don't remove our old beliefs before adding new. I mean, we want to get rid of the old beliefs before we add new ones. And so we do that right along, we do them together, actually. We can't afford to take shortcuts. And it's a matter of habits. We have habits of speaking. We have habits of speaking that take us into duality. And we don't want to go there. We really don't want to be in duality. We want to be one with everything and everyone. And I found that, you know, that's really hard to do, because, you know, I'm here and you're over there, and there's this appearance of separation. But in reality, we are not separate. We are all connected with the one in the one. And this is what denials helps us do, is to negate those things that we were thinking, and to bring into our life the positive things that we want. We must be willing to take responsibility. And not every undesirable situation in our life is our fault. But we are learning to move through that using our spiritual affirmations. Denials should be taken extremely lightly. We do not, you know, we want to take, you know how it is when you clean the cobwebs from the corners of your room? If you ever get cobwebs, I don't know, I must have lots of spiders, because I get lots of cobwebs. I take this little brush thing on a long stick and stick it up there and just brush them down. You know, you don't want to beat them to death. You want to just do it gently. You don't want to yell your denials. Denials should always be done very gently, just letting them go, because we don't want to really give them any energy. We just want to let them go. It's all a matter of habit. Before we've used denials and affirmations to control things in the, you know, before we use denials and affirmations to control the things in our physical world. And we said things like, there is no lack of money in my bank account, I am wealthy beyond measure. Well, that's all fine and good, if you can really believe it. But at the same time, it's not where we are talking about today. We are talking about going higher or deeper, whichever the way you like to see it, into a new way of doing affirmations. A new way of looking at it. Again, we look back at the words that Jesus said, seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added. You know, we say that, we don't believe it. I wish we did, but for the most part we don't. But if we say it enough, I know we're going to come to believe it. And if we prove it to ourselves, and we can do that, then we will have that kind of life that we're looking for. Now we're using those denials and affirmations to embrace our true identity and the truth of our being. And so the denial and affirmation that I said before could be changed to, I am not and cannot be threatened by feelings of lack and limitation. I am divine abundance, an ever-flowing stream of plenty. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? On the one, we're on the physical plane. On the second one, we are on the spiritual plane. If denial is an activity of releasing a negative subconscious preconception, then affirmation is the activity of establishing your mind in the truth of God. When the soil is prepared through denial, the seed is good and must be planted in affirmation. An affirmation is a conscious effort to bring the truth of God into your consciousness and then to act from that truth. Divine Spirit is my true identity. We have come to bear witness to this truth. It is up to us. It's a huge responsibility because we are touching the lives of everyone around us. And when we are coming from merely human, we are weak. But when we are coming with our spiritual knowingness, coming through our humanity, we are strong. We have to dare to speak the truth in the face of the evidence to the contrary. And who do we speak this truth to? We speak it to ourselves. We speak it to ourselves. The words of affirmation must be filled with power and energy. Unlike denials, we want our affirmations to be filled with power and energy. Lots of power and energy, and said in such a way that's going to excite the imagination and empower action. The quote that our author used was Charles Fillmore's affirmation at age 92. And I love this affirmation. Many of you already know it. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm to spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. 92 years old. That's what he said before he got out of bed in the morning. Maybe that's how he got to be 92. I believe that the work of denial and affirmation is necessary in a time when things seem to just pile up. Have you ever had those times? It's not the big stuff that really gets us often. It's those little things that just pile up, you know, one thing after another. If you had those days when one thing happens and then something else and then something else and you think, what is going on? Well, this is the time when we use our affirmations and denials to come back to center. I don't know about you, but if I'm in traffic, and I was driving last night behind someone that was kind of going over the lines quite a bit, and so I stayed back for a while just to be safe, and I started saying affirmations, you know, because I was a little nervous about it, and I started saying, you know, I drive carefully and with love. My divine spirit is guiding this car in all that I do, and as we begin to say these things, say these affirmations, we find that it is easier and easier to construct them. I would suggest that you begin to really start to take some of these inside, maybe even memorize them, so that when something happens, you can either bring that one up or construct a new one as we begin to do this. And it seems hard at first, but as we do it more and more, it becomes habitual and it's very easy for us to do. So take a little time to really think about a dilemma you're dealing with and write a denial and an affirmation that really reflects your true nature. And when you do this, you'll find it gets easier and easier. There was a very wealthy woman who went to Eric Butterworth's Unity Church in New York City. And she was really a very serious Unity student. And she had a maid, and the maid just seemed to have one sickness after another. It just, you know, and she was really getting run down, and the woman was very concerned about her. And so the woman was going on a trip for 2 months to Europe, and so she decided that maybe if the woman was willing, she would help her while, you know, that's something she could do while she was gone. And she asked her, she said, you know, I noticed you've been so sick, and I'm really so sorry, and it seems like, you know, nothing seems to be getting better. Would you be willing to say an affirmation every day while I'm gone. And the woman said yes, and she said, well, okay, let me give you this affirmation. And she wrote it out for her, and she said, I want you to read this every day in front of the mirror. And here's an affirmation, something like what she wrote. I don't know exactly the words she wrote, but it was a very long affirmation. God is ever-renewing divine life. Therefore, I am ever-renewing divine life. Every cell in my body is pulsating divine life. All that God is my true nature. All-encompassing wholeness is my true nature. I am divine. All-inclusive wholeness and exhilarating wellness are natural to me. I rest and relax in my true state of being, well-being. Well, the woman promised her that she would read this in front of the mirror every day, all of the time that the lady was gone. So when the lady came back, she saw her maid, and the maid looked great. She was like radiant, and her color was good, and she was energetic, and as she went about her work, she was like humming a song, and she was really doing well. And the woman said, wow, I'm so happy to see you feeling well. And the woman said, oh yeah, I feel great. And she said, well, tell me, did you do those affirmations in front of the mirror? And she said, well, I did the affirmation in front of the mirror the first day, and then I did it the second day, but then I lost it. I misplaced it, and I couldn't find it. But she said, I still stood in front of the mirror, and she said, I said, oh hell, I'm well. You know, she'd established those other good words in her consciousness, so she, so she just made it easier. When you make your affirmations, do make them short and succinct so that you can remember them. Because if you tried to remember that whole thing, you might be able to do it. In fact, if you really, really worked at it, I'm sure you could, but it would be a little more difficult. I'd like you to check out Reverend Linda's book, How to Pray Without Talking to God, and practice the affirmations and the denials that she has in the book. And you might even memorize a few until you get the hang of creating them for yourself. I do recommend that you keep them short and to the point. And you may be surprised at how these simple statements can actually take you back to a place of being centered. And this is where we want to be. When we are centered, we make great decisions. All of the things that we thought bothered us really come into perspective. And for the most part, most of the things that happen to us are really not worth spending a lot of time on. And so this is going to help, and it'll help take away the fear. I've noticed that when I'm really upset, that the underlying factor here is fear. And fear is the thing that's going to keep us from the wonderful way of expressing in the world that we want to. And so, and this is not only in times of challenge, but just everyday annoyances. So denials and affirmations are the tools we can use to take us into transformation for this new age that is coming and that we are welcoming. I am so excited about the changes that the people in this church are making. I'm really excited about the changes that are happening in my own life. And so I say, thank you for being on this journey with me, and God bless you, because we're going to get there. The voyage is the whole thing. That's the fun. God bless.